Önce şu JohnnyDepp'e bir bakacağım. Son dava kapanış konuşma. Bunlar zaten 10 dakikalık videolar. Çerez bunlar. Ya bunları otur çık lan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California to get a no-notice ex-parte restraining order against Mr. Depp. And in doing so, ruined his life by falsely telling the world that she was a survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of Mr. Depp. Today, on May 27th, 2022, exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back by telling the world that Mr. Depp is not the abuser Ms. Heard said he is, and hold Ms. Heard accountable for her lies. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you probably know by now, my name is Camille Vasquez.
Çok güzel kadın ya.
On behalf of Mr. Depp and all my colleagues at Brown Rednick, I want to thank you deeply for your time and your service over these last 7 weeks. We understand that it probably has not been convenient for you to be here every day, and we are so grateful for your time and careful consideration of the evidence as you deliberate.
Bu davayı Depp tam olarak nerede kazandı biliyor musunuz? Benim gözümde AmberHeard'ın bu dakikadan sonra şahitliğinin hiçbir anlamı yok. Söylediği şeylerin de hiçbir anlamı yok. Çünkü yeminli ifade altında yalan söyledi. Gündelik hayatında yalan söyledi. Yani bunun artık hani kabul edilecek tarafı yok. Anladın mı? Gerçekten kabul edilecek tarafı yok ya bunun. Her şey geçtim. Şey kısmında bitti yani benim için. Bütün mevzu kapandı o dakikadan sonra. Zaten oradan sonra da bütün bakış açım, her şeyim değişti. Dedi ki 7 milyonu ben bağışta bulundum falan filan yapıyor böyle talk show'da. Sonra buraya geldi dedi ki tebliğ ettim. Tebliğ ettim. Yani vermemiş. Ya bu dakikadan sonra senin ifadene kim inansın? Sen yalan söylemişsin, bir de üstüne yalanı artık yuva yapmışsın yani ağzına.
After weeks of sitting in this courtroom, listening to testimony and looking at evidence, now it's time for you, the jury, to come to a decision. You have been entrusted with a serious task. What is at stake in this trial is a man's good name. Even more than that, what is at stake at this trial is a man's life. The life that he lost when he was accused of a heinous crime, and the life he could live when he is finally vindicated. Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Johnny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause.
Bu arada aralarında biliyorsunuz ki hem evlilik sözleşmesi var hem de gizlilik sözleşmesi var. Meşhur bir makale olayı var. Johnny Depp'in asla adını yazmadı. Ama oturup böyle makale yazdı. Mevzu zaten aslında oradan çıkıyor.
Which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see. The image of a battered woman. What the paparazzi did not know is that the dark mark on her face mysteriously appeared 6 days after last seeing Mr. Depp. It was a lie. She knew it, Mr. Depp knew it, and the multiple witnesses you heard from who saw her that week of May 21st, 2016 also knew it. But the world only saw what she wanted them to see. 2 years later, when promoting the biggest role of her career, until this trial, Ms. Heard presented herself to the world as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The headline of the op-ed featured the term sexual violence, even though she had never before accused her ex-husband of such a heinous crime. Ms. Heard and her lawyers love to remind you of how the op-ed did not mention Mr. Depp by name. But Ms. Heard made sure that there would be no mistake about who she was referring to. She inserted, 2 years ago, so the world would remember the photo of a battered woman, the mark on her face, standing outside the courthouse, and they would once again see Mr. Depp as the villain, this time in full swing of the Me Too movement. But what was happening behind closed doors was quite different from what Ms. Heard presented to the world. The exact opposite, in fact. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp. And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard. The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser, and Mr. Depp the abused. As you heard from Mr. Depp and multiple other witnesses that testified under oath at this trial, Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. And when their relationship was over, Ms. Heard inflicted the greatest and cruelest injury of all. She publicly and falsely named Mr. Depp as the abuser. Ms. Heard never thought she would be held accountable, never thought that she would have to face her abuser. She never thought she would have her supposed mountain of evidence vetted. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. I know it's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
At the start of this case, Mr. Chu and I stood before you to give you our opening statements on behalf of Mr. Depp. During that statement, we made promises to you about what the evidence would ultimately show at the end of this trial. We've kept those promises. One of those promises we made was that you would come to understand who Ms. Heard is, that she is a deeply troubled person, violently afraid of abandonment, desperate for attention and approval.
Bu arada geçen gün izlediğimiz o psikolog kadın var ya, arkadaşlar o hani AmberHeard kendisinde psikolojik bir rahatsızlık olduğunu söylediği için Johnny Depp tarafının şöyle bir hakkı doğuyormuş. AmberHeard'ı bir nasıl söyleyeyim, bir görüşme sağlama bir psikologla falan filan, öyle bir şeyler işte. Şu an tam olarak anlatamamış olabilirim ama baya AmberHeard'le bir terapi gerçekleştirmişler, bir görüşme gerçekleştirmişler. Kadının bu şey dediği var ya işte, ünlü insanlar gelmeden önce hani temizlik yapıyorduk içeride dediği o temizlik söylemi de çalışanların ünlü birisi geleceği için ve o kişinin gizliliğini korumak adına çalışanların dışarıya çıkartılmasıymış. Ben de aslında kendimize bakıyorum.
And in her relationship with Mr. Depp, she was violent, she was abusive, and she was cruel. You heard from Dr. Shannon Curry, who explained that Ms. Heard suffers from borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. These are disorders that are characterized by anger, sometimes uncontrollable and explosive anger, and a powerful, sometimes desperate need for attention, acceptance, and approval. Fear of abandonment is the deepest fear. A person with these disorders will suffer from dramatically fluctuating moods and can sometimes be violent and aggressive. They can also be charming and likable, but they can be incredibly manipulative and wild. An emotional roller coaster with wild swings, from idolizing their partner to devaluing him. In fact, you saw that when she completed testing with her own forensic psychology expert, Dr. Don Hughes. Ms. Heard self-reported that she felt like she had 3 or 4 different personalities, and that sometimes her temper would explode and she'd completely lose control. You heard from multiple witnesses that Ms. Heard can be very pleasant, even charming. But you also heard from multiple witnesses and in audio recordings of Ms. Heard that she can be incredibly aggressive, violent, and cruel. You heard that even from her former assistant, Kate James, Ms. James testified that Ms. Heard would scream, yell, and send her barrages of text messages. In fact, Ms. Heard...
Ay Allah'ım sen koru ya Rabbim. Ya bir gün Enesler falan konuşurlarsa. Allah korusun. Ya bugün Enes, Hakkı, Harun, Bilal, Mehmet ya konuşurlarsa, ay neyse sustururuz artık hep beraber, ne yapalım? Üf. Ne yapalım? Artık sustururuz.
Heard testified that Miss James testified that Miss Heard literally spat in her face. You heard from Miss Heard's former best friend, Rocky Pennington, that Miss Heard once hit her when Miss Pennington did not do her best to meet Miss Heard's needs. You also heard from Beverly Leonard that she once witnessed Miss Heard assault her then partner in Seattle Airport in 2009. And you heard from Mr. Depp that Miss Heard used her sister Whitney as a punching bag, literally and figuratively. You also heard overwhelming evidence from Mr. Depp and the people that were around him and Miss Heard during their relationship, that Mr. Depp suffered persistent verbal and physical abuse at the hands of Miss Heard. You've heard evidence from Dr. Curry and the fact witnesses at this trial that Miss Heard's deepest fear is one of abandonment, being left by Mr. Depp. Mr. Depp's greatest crime in her mind, the fault she confronts him with time and time again, is that he splits. He leaves the fight, especially when Miss Heard gets physical. And she couldn't stand it when he did.
Evet ya. Bir tane ses kaydı var. Ben şok geçirdim hatta yani. Diyor ki sadece diyor sana vuruldu diye gidemezsin. Başka bir yerde duramazsın gibi bir şey söylüyor. Öyle bir ses kaydı vardı ya. Sana kim inanır kimi diyor, bir şey diyor falan. O ses kaydının içine demiyor muydu?
Heard yourselves in audio recordings how upsetting it was to her when Mr. Depp would split.
Anytime anything goes wrong, you split. I feel like it's your first thing. And it's unnecessary. It's not always you're splitting because there's blows or because there's yelling or anything. You split most times when I'm still speaking in this volume and nothing has been thrown or hit or anything.
You saw the barrage of text messages she would send when he would leave, calling him a monster for doing so.
Ben kavgaya da huzursuz lafa gelemiyorum.
You heard from witnesses like Travis McGivern, Tara Roberts, and Debbie Lloyd that Ms. Heard would claw at Mr. Depp, block the elevator, throw a punch when Mr. Depp tried to separate himself from the fight. And you heard from Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's couple therapist, Dr. Anderson, that Ms. Heard reported that when Mr. Depp would leave to de-escalate a fight, she would strike him to keep him there. Like she would to de-escalate a fight.
Counter oynuyor. Beyler devada bitmeli.
She would strike him to keep him there. Like she would rather be in a fight than have him leave. You heard from Mr. Depp about how often Ms. Heard would berate him, insult him, and physically attack him, including one of the most serious occasions when Ms. Heard threw a vodka bottle at Mr. Depp, severely injuring his finger, and then put a cigarette out on his face.
Benim bunların derdi ya, bunlar boşanıyor. İğrenç ve rezil bir şekilde boşanıyorlar ama. Johnny Depp de diyor ki ben ömrü hayatımda, gelsin hayatımdaki kadınlar da konuşsun, ben hiçbir kadına ne cinsel şiddette bulundum, ne cinsel olarak istismar ettim, ne bir insana dövdüm, zart yaptım, zurt yaptım, hiçbir şey yapmadım diye de iftira davası açtı. Yani çoktan boşandılar. Boşanıyorlar ancak boşanırken çok olaylı bir süreçle boşanıyorlar. Çünkü AmberHeard diyor ki bir makale yayınlıyor. Yayınlanan bu makalede kendisinin hem psikolojik şiddete hem fiziksel şiddete maruz kaldığını, hem cinsel istismara maruz bırakıldığını evliliği içerisinde, bunlardan bahsediyor. Johnny Depp de diyor ki hayır, bu benim itibarımı zedelemedir. Ben yıllar sonra bunu herkese, bütün dünyaya anlatmak istiyorum. Ben böyle bir şey yapmadım, yapmam diyor. Bu davaya tanık olarak dahil olan bir kişi var. Johnny Depp'in eski sevgililerinden Kate Moss. Kate Moss çıktığında da dedi ki AmberHeard çünkü diyor ki bak gene yeminli ifade gene yalan ifade. Sana sinir olur. Diyor ki Johnny diyor şeyi de merdivenlerden itti Kate Moss'u da. Gittikleri bir tatilde. Can sıkıcı kısım bu yani. Kate Moss da çıkıyor diyor ki bütün bir ilişkimiz boyunca bana vurmadı, bana bağırmadı, beni iteklemedi, bana herhangi bir şiddette bulunmadı diyor mahkemeye çıkıp. Çok yağmurlu bir gündü diyor, merdivenlerden kayıp düştüm, Johnny beni hemen kucakladı, odama götürdü, medikal yardım almamı sağladı diyor.
You heard from Mr. Depp that this whole incident in Australia started because Ms. Heard was enraged that Mr. Depp wanted a post-nuptial agreement and she wasn't in his will, just a month after getting married. When her husband was seriously injured and bleeding from a partially amputated finger, what did Ms. Heard do? She pursued him. She kept coming after him because that's what she does. She wouldn't stop.
It's not to get you mad, it's just to get out of a bad situation that's happening before it gets worse. In Australia, when we had the big fight where I lost the tip of my finger, at least 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms I went to.
Bence bu ses kayıtları da niye var biliyor musunuz? Boşanmaya çoktan hazırlar. Yani kanıt topluyor iki tarafta. Bak çok ciddi.
To avoid talking to me, to avoid working it out. That's
to escape the fight.
You don't escape the fight. You escape the solution.
No.
You escape the solution.
No.
You escape figuring it out. We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
You heard Mr. Depp testify. He went through something like a nervous breakdown that day. And he wrote a lot of things on mirrors and other places. Again, what did Ms. Heard do as her husband was bleeding from serious injury? She wrote snarky messages right back to him. She denied it under oath to you, but the evidence you saw speaks for itself. You heard from Mr. Depp's security, Sean Bett, who was aware of constant arguing and bickering. He witnessed Ms. Heard calling Mr. Depp names. Fat ass. Fuck you, Johnny. Mr. Bett testified that he saw and documented injuries on Mr. Depp. A swollen eyelid in March of 2015, cuts on his nose, scratch marks on his chin in December of 2015. And you heard from Travis McGivern, who testified that Ms. Heard called Mr. Depp names like washed up, fucking cunt, and worst of all, a fucking deadbeat dad. Ms. Heard would take the low blows and hit him where it hurts, his children. Mr. McGivern told you that on March 23rd, 2015, Ms. Heard threw things at Mr. Depp, spat at him, and ultimately punched him in the face, leaving him with a shiner.
Ya! Ya bunu yapma işte bak. Bak Johnny Depp Türkiye.
I didn't want this. I don't want to be here. I didn't want to be there then.
Bir de bayıl istiyorsan Feriha.
Bir türlü ağlayamadı ya. Bir türlü ağlayamadı. O bir türlü olmadı yani. Diğer tarafınki var mı? Part 2'si var da. Hadi bakalım. Hoş geldin 4 saat Just Chatting yayını. Hoş geldin. Hoş geldin.
You heard testimony from Malcolm Connolly, another security member, who testified he saw Ms. Heard throw things at Mr. Depp. A cigarette lighter on a plane, a soda can from upstairs at the Eastern Columbia building. He never saw marks on Ms. Heard, but he saw marks on Mr. Depp. Scratches, bruises on his left eye, scratches on his left ear. and he took pictures documenting injuries.
Oğlum bu fotoğraf inanılmaz mesela ya. Resmen adam öyle bir dayak yemiş ki mesela ve fotoğrafı var yani bu anın.
Like this one.
Şişmiş,
You also heard from
morarmış.
Tara Roberts, a manager at Mr. Depp's island, who witnessed Miss Heard telling Mr. Depp that he was washed up and would die fat and lonely. You also heard from
Bir bana şişko desin onu nasıl döverim var ya. Hayır dövmem, şiddete karşıyız çünkü.
Miss Roberts that she witnessed Miss Heard clawing and grabbing at Mr. Depp, grabbing his hair, trying to pull him back to her. And Mr. Depp had a visible injury to his nose on that occasion. Most importantly, you heard from Miss Heard yourselves on multiple audio recordings admitting to being physically violent with Mr. Depp. You heard Miss Heard admit to hitting Mr. Depp.
And then you fucking clocked me.
I remember hating you as a response to the door thing. And I'm really sorry about hitting you with the door or hitting your head. I did not mean to, nor...
You didn't mean to hit me in the head with the door, but you meant to punch me in the jaw.
I meant to hit you, and I did not do this thing with the door. I do remember, I did mean to hit you.
So that you didn't mean.
The door? No, God, no, I didn't.
But punching me in the jaw.
I didn't. Okay, I'm sorry I hit you. I did mean to hit you, but it was in response. I just reacted in response to my foot. I just reacted.
Ayağına ne oldu ki?
You heard her admit it again and claim Mr. Depp was a baby for complaining about the abuse.
Ay benim bu çok kötü bir ses kaydı bu
Punch you,
arada ya.
by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights. You've been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
What am I supposed to do? Do this?
Canını yakmadım demesi inanılmaz. Of ya.
I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you started.
You're such a baby. Grow the fuck up,
You
Johnny.
started physical fights.
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did. So I had
Because-
to get the fuck out of there.
Yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You're admirable.
Take a minute to really think about what you just heard there. Quote, I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched. Imagine that was Mr. Depp saying that to Miss Heard on that recording. Let's play one more.
Çok hoşuna.
That fake laugh. That fake laugh is too much to take.
No, I'm sure she's.
That fake laugh is so disgusting.
I'm sure she's great. I'm sure she's great.
I'm thinking that you can give me some
No.
of the best performances in the
No,
world.
no, you're right. I don't. It's all about performance.
It's about performance in you. No, Amber, I don't regret. I don't regret.
What else?
I don't
What else
regret.
that you do? Oh God.
Kız ikisi de karşılıklı ses kayıtları almışlar.
Come on,
Don't
be
regret.
good.
No, I
Come
don't
on,
regret.
lay it on me. What else? What else other things do you want to add?
Can't talk
You
to me, you
fucking
sound
lying
like
piece of
Bobby
shit.
Bear.
What? Oh
Like
no,
a
I
kid
want
show.
to know. I want
JohnnyDepp'in taklidini yapıyor şu an.
Kind of waiting. You go get it.
Yeah, I'll be in the
Wait, is there no other place for you to run when you're 15 and you're how good to go run? Come on, go be a real married man and go deal with your shit the way that a man does. Go run to the next house. Every man does.
Yeah.
Go. Run away.
This is the real Miss Heard, the one in the audio recordings, not the one you saw in this courtroom.
Not alıyor ne yazıyor?
What you didn't hear on a single
Ya ne yazdı? Dava boyunca ne yazdığını çok merak ediyorum ya. Mesela aniden şey yazsana, baştan sona böyle AmberHeard meğersem Polonez köydeyim yazmış böyle. Pembeye yazdığı şiir vardı ya Yunus'un. Mesela onun gibi bir şiir akrostiş falan çıksa böyle baştan aşağı.
Recording you heard in this case, and there were many played by both parties. Is Mr. Depp ever admitting to hitting, punching, or kicking Miss Heard? You didn't hear it. It doesn't exist. It didn't happen.
Çok
And
rahatsız edici
despite the
sesler
fact
bu
that
arada.
Mr. Depp and
Ben
Miss Heard
böyle
are
duyunca
heard
bile çok
discussing
aşırı
many of the
tetikliyor beni
alleged
ha.
incidents you've heard about at this trial, like Australia and the Bahamas, you never heard Miss Heard accuse Mr. Depp of sexual assault. Unlike Mr. Depp, who you heard admit to and own up to his past mistakes and his struggles, particularly with drugs and alcohol, Miss Heard will not admit that she has ever done anything wrong. But she cannot deny what you heard on those recordings. As much as Miss Heard and her lawyers
Şu an
have
orada oturuyor olsaydı şey yapıyordu Amber hemen. Evet, kabul etmeyeceğim. Evet, öyle bir şey yapmayacağım.
tried to make this case about Mr. Depp's
Aşırı
language,
takıldım o kafa
it is Miss
hareketine.
Heard that repeatedly admits to violence.
Çok ağırlıklı bu arada bu
By
tarafınkini
April and
dinlediğim
May
için
of
işte ben ne
2016,
kadar görüyor musun?
Mr.
Duygular
Depp
ne
had
kadar
reached his limit.
etkileniyorum.
His mother was dying. His finances were a mess. And when he showed up late to Miss Heard's 30th
az
birthday
değilim
party,
ben. Her şeyden
because a meeting with
etkileniyorum
his
ben.
new business manager, Edward White, had gone late, Miss Heard, of course, was not understanding. She was furious. You heard from Mr. Depp, both in this courtroom and on audio recordings, that Miss Heard punched him that evening. He left with Travis McGivern, and the next morning he learned that someone had left feces on his bed.
Ha!
Miss Heard
İşte
denies
işte
responsibility,
davada istediğim kısım, yatağa boklama kısmı. En bayıldığım kısım.
but she admitted to the prank to Starling Jenkins.
Oh?
You heard him testify to that effect. For almost a month after that, they didn't see each other. And you heard from Mr. Depp that when his mother died on May 20th, 2016, he resolved to leave Miss Heard. He was done. And when Miss Heard learned that Mr. Depp was done, that she was really losing him, she went on the attack. She filed for divorce before Mr. Depp could. Then, as you heard from Mr. Depp's divorce lawyer, Laura Wasser, Miss Heard sent a letter demanding financial support. And when her demands weren't met, Miss Heard struck a blow against Mr. Depp that was more damaging than any physical blow she had ever landed. When she walked into court 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, to get a domestic violence restraining order against Mr. Depp, she did so in front of paparazzi with a mark on her face. The evidence presented at this trial demonstrates that Miss Heard didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to ruin him. Miss Heard denied alerting TMZ.
Ben bu detayı asla bilmiyordum. Önce bir mali talepte bulunuyor. Daha sonra mı gidip dava açıyor? Ya diyelim ki biriyle bir ilişki yaşadım, evlendim, cart oldu, curt oldu. Bu tabii ki de benim şeyim ama. Anladım, benimki niye olay olsun da. Ya giderim, insan gibi boşanırım ve derim ki biz yapamadık. Yani biz seninle gerçekten yapamadık. İğrenç bir ilişkimiz vardı bizim. Bundan sonra iğrenç bir insan olma lütfen. Çünkü eğer ki iğrenç bir insan olursan seni rezil ederim. Hadi. Yani bitmiş gitmiş, yani benimle yapamamış, anladın mı? Ben de onunla yapamamışım. Yoluma bakmaya çalışırım ya. Gerçekten yoluma bakmaya çalışırım. Bilmiyorum ya, bunları dinlemek beni çok kötü ediyor gerçekten. Evet, ilk penthouse'lara aylık $50.000 ve bir de jip istemiş. Yani birbirlerine evliliklerinde zarar vermişler, sevgiliyken zarar vermişler, boşandıktan sonra zarar vermeye devam ediyorlar. Aman be yani.
to the TRO filing in this courtroom. But you heard testimony
bu
from
dava
Morgan
resmen diyor ki,
Tremaine that TMZ knew to go to the
yapmamış
courthouse,
ya, inanılmaz
knew
geliyor
what side of
bana.
her face the alleged bruise was on, and that Miss Heard would pause. She would pause for paparazzi, who got the photos that ended up splashed across newspapers and magazines.
Nasılsın? Sağ ol, ben de iyiyim. Kapım açık dursa olur değil mi? Olur. Tamam.
Ms. Heard testified that she did not personally give photographs of her apparent injuries to People magazine. But somehow, these pictures that she took and maintained on her devices ended up on the cover of People magazine 1 month later. In the end, she walked away with $7 million without any tax liabilities, which she said she was donating to 2 charities, the ACLU and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
Benim
The ACLU,
en gıcık olduğum yer.
they got less than $1 million from her. And the Children's Hospital, they got $250,000. But that didn't stop Ms. Heard from telling the world that she donated everything. Because remember, she wanted nothing. And she had donated everything. The word donated. And that didn't stop her from testifying under the penalty of perjury that she had donated it. Ms. Heard tried to tell you that...
O ne düşündü biliyor musun? Beyefendi halledecek gibi düşündü. Kız vergisi var, algısı var. Herif senin hesabına nasıl çatlayan? Dedi ki bence ne kadar hallederiz diye düşündü o. Ben söyleyeyim. Öyle şak diye parayı çıkarıp veremezsin. Tabii veremezsin. Bir de KDV, arkadaşlar KDV'siz 7 milyon doların size geçmesi ne demek biliyor musunuz? 7 milyon doların KDV'siz geçmesi. Ben bilmem ama başkasına sorsanız bilir mesela.
That pledge and donate mean the same thing. She claims she hasn't given the money because she was sued. But you've heard on...
Gerçi 128 milyar doların yüzde kaçı ediyor 7 milyon dolar? Çok da bir şey etmiyor kız. Değil mi? Tabii 128 milyar doların içerisinde pul tanesi gibi bir şey.
Contested evidence that she had the money for 13 months prior
milyar
to this
canım,
lawsuit being
milyon
commenced
değil.
by Mr. Depp. She had all the money and had month after month after month to fulfill her pledge and actually donate the money.
Daha da kötü. Bak sinirliyorum işte, o yüzden durduruyorum. bir de dedi ki çünkü dedi Johnny bana dava açtı dedi. 11 ay sonra dava açılmış. Son taksit yatıyor. 7 milyon doların son kuruşu yatıyor. 11 ay sonra dava açılıyor. Hatta 13 de olabilir. 13 ay da olabilir. Ya bir ay olsun ya. Ya bir ay olsun abi. Bir ay sonra dava açmış olsun. Gidersin. Hiçbir şey istemediysen o parayı verirsin. Dersin ki ben bu herifin parasını da istemiyorum. Hiçbir şeyini de istemiyorum. Hatta parası iyiliğe gitsin diyorsan eğer, daha sana ulaştığı gün hatta şöyle yaparsın. Otomatik ödeme talimatı verirsin. Hangi ayın artık hangi günü yatıyorsa ve dersin ki şu gün işte ACU'ya işte artık ne zartsa ne surtsa diğerine yatırılsın dersin. Otomatik olarak yatırılır. Bu böyledir. Benim mesela tazminat davasını kazandığım bazı davalar var. Mesela ben direkt olarak dava açtığım tarafa diyorum ki hiç benim hesabıma geçirmeyin. Direkt olarak oraya gönderin. Bize de makbuzunu iletin. Biz de makbuzunu alıyoruz kurumdan. Benim hesabıma bile geçmesini istemiyorum yani.
But she didn't. She also told you that she never fulfilled the pledge because Mr. Depp sued her for defamation. That's a blatant lie. When she sought to initiate an arbitration against Mr. Depp for defamation 3 months before the op-ed was even published, and 6 months before Mr. Depp filed this lawsuit. Not only does this contradict Ms. Heard's excuse for not making donations, it contradicts her narrative that she just wants to move on with her life. that she just wants Mr. Depp to leave her alone. Lies. That is Ms. Heard's narrative. Lies upon lies.
This, and then there was a divorce settlement. You got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money, but then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to. I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
She tries to cover it up with more lies. So let's talk about the giant lie at the heart of this case. Ms. Heard's claim that Mr. Depp is an abusive monster and that she is a public figure representing domestic abuse. At the start of this case, Mr. Chu and I told you that you were going to hear some disturbing and graphic tales of abuse from Ms. Heard, and they were designed to shock you and overwhelm you, which you have. We told you that this would be a performance, the role of her lifetime, as a heroic survivor of brutal abuse. When Mr. Depp brought this case for defamation, Ms. Heard went all in. She spun a story of shocking, overwhelming, brutal abuse. She came into this courtroom prepared to give the performance of her life, and she gave it. Ms. Heard's acting coach, Christina Sexton, testified that Ms. Heard has difficulty crying when she is acting. You saw it. Ms. Heard sobbing without tears, while spinning elaborate, exaggerated, fantastical accounts of abuse and everything going on in her mind almost a decade prior while enduring that abuse. It was a performance. She told you that what she thinks about, she told you what she thinks you need to hear to convict this man as a domestic abuser and a rapist. She wants you to believe that she was abused countless times. Countless times. Over the entire course of their relationship. But as Mr. Chu and I promised you, the evidence just does not bear that out. Ms. Heard has told you that she has mountains of evidence of abuse. But there are no medical records reflecting she sustained any injuries from the abuse she claims. Ms. Heard had medical professionals at her disposal. Dr. Kipper, Debbie Lloyd, her own nurse, Erin Filati. And yet, there's nothing. Ms. Heard took pictures all the time. Pictures of Mr. Depp sleeping. Pictures of cocaine. Pictures of property damage. Pictures of herself. And as an actress, she was photographed all the time.
Mümkün değil bunu
Where
yapmam
are the
ya.
pictures?
Ya bu var ya bilmiyorum ya. Öf işte. Ay ne kadar tehlikeli bir şey ya. Yani tehlikeli kısmı ne biliyor musunuz? Mesela bu halde ve ben yanına gidip niye bunu bize yapıyorsun, niye bunu kendine yapıyorsun, ben bu ilişkinin içerisinde durmak istemiyorum tedavi olmayacaksan. Yani ben bu ilişkinin içerisinde zaten artık durmak istemiyorum. Seni de bir an önce bir yere yatırmak istiyorum. Çünkü senin iyi olmanı istiyorum. Çünkü seni seviyorum. Oturup da fotoğrafını çekmem. Çekmem fotoğrafını. Çünkü seni sevdim derim. Ses kaydı almam. Şu dosyaları sileyim. Aşırı üzüyor yani bu konular beni ya. Korkunç. Mesela ben sevdiğim insanı böyle görmeye bir dakika, tek bir dakika bile tahammül edemem. Edemem. Kaç yaşına gelirse gelsin. İstediği kadar kendi özgür iradesi olsun. Hep söylüyorum, bir noktaya kadar bende özgür irade kavramı çalışıyor. Bu halde gördüğüm anda, yani şu fotoğraf özellikle, yani şu ve şu, Beni çok kötü ediyor bu iki fotoğraf. Bunu gördüğüm anda benim dünyayı ayağa kaldırmamam imkansız yani. Derim ki benden nefret etsin hayatı boyunca ama iyi olsun. Ölmesin. Yani bir köşede ölmesin. Kendisine bunu yapmasın. Ve kendisine zarar vermesin ya. Lütfen alın. Ya ararım abi, her yeri ararım ya. Derim gelin ve alın. Yardım edin.
Horrific injuries Ms. Heard describes. Ms. Heard also took audio recordings and videos frequently. Where are the videos of Mr. Depp attacking her? Where are the audio recordings of Mr. Depp admitting to or apologizing for physical abuse? There are none. What Ms. Heard has, and what you've seen multiple times, is a video of Mr. Depp banging some cabinets around in a kitchen. Physical
Kaybettik IQ bakıcı geliyor.
abuse. There are none. What Ms. Heard has, and what you've seen multiple times, is a video of Mr. Depp banging some cabinets around in a kitchen.
Haklı olan kazansın. Gerçekten Allah'ım sana yalvarıyorum. Haklı olan kişi kazansın bu davayı. Lütfen. Tek istediğim bu. Biri bana berbat davransa ben yardım etmem bu arada. Zaten yeterince sıkıntı var. Düzgün iletişim kuramıyorlar. Pqueen bu arada söylenen konu şu. O dönemler diyor ki sürekli onu düzeltmeye çalıştım diyor. Sürekli iyi olacağına inandım diyor. Tedavi olmasını istedim diyor. Bu dönemlerden, bu fotoğraf çektiği dönemlerden bahsediyorum. Ama bir taraftan fotoğrafını çekiyor. Öyleyken. Ben düzeltmek isteyen bir insanın, çünkü kimisinde şu vardır. Kimi insanda şu vardır. İşte I can fix him. Bu da doğru değil bu arada. Özellikle yabancılarda çok kullanılan bir şey ya bu hani. İşte onu düzeltebilirim. Hayır, o aslında çok iyi birisi ve benim aşkım onu iyileştirecek. Bu genellikle çocukluk travmalarından gelir. Şiddet olan bir evde büyüdüysen eğer aynı senaryoyu tekrardan kendi ilişkin içerisinde yaratıp o senaryonun içerisinden doğru sonuca ulaşmaya çalışırsın. Düzgün adımlar atmaya çalışırsın. O düzgün adımlarla karşındakinin düzelmesini sağlamaya çalışırsın. Ve genelde de düzelmez. Bu arada bunu her zaman size söylüyorum. Asla ve asla düzelmez. Ya asla ve asla değil. Çok ciddi bir emekle, karşı tarafın gösterdiği bir emekle düzelir. Ama bu da çok düşük ihtimaller dahilinde ne yazık ki. Ha, onu iyileştirebilirim mantığından bahsediyorum ki hep söylüyorum, genel olarak düzelmiyorlar. Benim çok fazla arkadaşım ne yazık ki şiddet mağduru oldu. Benim şahsım adıma önceki ilişkilerimde de çok fazla özellikle psikolojik şiddet olarak çok mağdur edildiğim anlar ve zamanlar oldu. Düzelmiyorlar arkadaşlar. Kendi kendinize yeni senaryolar kurup insanları düzeltmeye çalışmayın. Düzelmiyorlar. Buradaki problem şu. AmberHeard diyor ki işte düzeleceğine inandım. İşte o yüzden düzeltmeye çalıştım. Düzeltmeye çalışan insanların neler yaptığını görseniz İnanamazsınız. Fotoğraf çekmez düzeltmeye çalışan insan mesela. Onun hesabını kitabını yapmaz. Çünkü onun zaten altında bambaşka bir psikolojik sebep yatıyordur. O sürekli olarak ailede mesela anne figürünün mesela hatalı görüyordu. İşte hayır, eğer annem böyle yapsaydı şiddet görmezdi ve biz bunları yaşamazdık olarak görüyor mu? O yüzden mesela sürekli şey yapar. Daha çok ilgi, daha çok alaka. Şunu da yapayım mı? Bunu da halledeyim mi? Hadi birlikte doktora gidelim. Hadi zart yapalım. Hadi zurt yapalım. Böylesindir yani sürekli. Hiçbiriniz tamirci değilsiniz ya. Hiç kimse de emin olun o kadar kıymetli değil. O insanın hani diyorsunuz, hep diyoruz ya mesela. İşte ben nasıl öyle birini nasıl bulacağım? Onu çok seviyorum. 20 katı daha çok sevdiğin insanda bulunuyor. Bulunuyor. Terapist değilsiniz. Ha, karşınızdaki kişi eğer şunu diyorsa ben terapiye başlayacağım. Bir süre birbirimizi görmeyelim. Çünkü bunu ben istemediğim sürece bu olmayacak. Bu süreçte sana da zarar vermek istemiyorum. Bir süre bu ilişkiden uzaklaşmak istiyorum. Terapi alacağım. Kendime gelmeye çalışacağım. Kendime geliyorsam tekrar seninle konuşmak isterim diyorsa, siz de bu konuda baskılamıyorsa. Çünkü bir de şöyle tipler var ya mesela. Sen gidersen ben yaşayamam, sen gidersen ben yapamam, sen gidersen ben ölürüm, sen gidersen ve olurum. Yalan abi onlarda. Yalan. Yalan. Ki her şey geçtim, bu çok daha hastalıklı bir düşünce.